Hi, my name is Sarah. Today you're going to hear my story of my experience with my ex-husband in my abusive relationship. I grew up in a traditional home. I was raised Pentecostal Christian, so it was very hierarchical. So my dad definitely was the man of the house. My dad was ex-military, so he suffered from bipolar disorder. So there was a lot of ups and downs within his personality. I am the youngest of three. We were a close family. I had good parental role models for a relationship. I didn't date very much. I watched my siblings really battle with my parents at a young age. So like my brother and sister were kind of rebellious. And so at 7, 8 years old, they're like screaming and yelling at each other. And I just knew I didn't want to be that way. So I pretty much did whatever my parents told me to do. And I really didn't date much till I got to college, which I think was part of the problem. I would kind of dream about who that person was for me. And obviously at that point in my life, it came from a religious standpoint. So I was like, I wonder who God has chosen for me, because I truly believe that those relationships were chosen, sort of. So I would think a lot about that. I definitely wanted to have kids. I knew I wanted to be a mom at a very young age, but I was kind of awkward and I was loud and I didn't have very good relationships with my peer groups. And I think that was where a lot of this stemmed from. Is I didn't have, like in high school, I definitely wasn't a popular kid. I remember a guy in high school said to me, it's unfortunate that you're so pretty and so annoying at the same time. And so, just kind of like, wow, lots of boys in school want to date you, but you're annoying, kind of a thing, was kind of the messaging that I got. Even like the one person that I did date in high school, he wouldn't talk to me in school. Like we dated outside of school because he was in a way different peer status than I was. And so we worked together and then he would talk to me outside of school, but as soon as we were in school, he wouldn't acknowledge me at all. And for some reason, that was just okay with me because I really liked him. But then he started dating a cheerleader from a neighboring school at the same time. I have big feelings. I've always had big feelings. I get really attached really quickly. And so that has caused me to not have the best judgment because I tend to stay attached too long because the hurt of losing someone is greater than staying with them. I went to college. I immersed myself in college. I joined a sorority because I wanted to make friends. And then I took a semester off and I started to work at this local insurance company in my town doing customer service type stuff. And he worked there. We met that way. I didn't know he liked me. I had no idea. And then when I came back after going to London, we connected pretty strongly after that. Like he told me he liked me. I really wasn't sure. Then there was another girl at work who liked him. And then I was like, okay, maybe I really do like this person because there was this twinge of jealousy. Don't take him from me kind of experience. He went to the same college as me. And so I really felt like it was kind of meant to be because we went to the same college. We had similar lifestyles. Like he understood me. Like he never ever, while we were dating, ever made fun of me. He never talked down to me. We just sort of really hit it off really well. And so he was the first person that I really felt like understood me in a way that other people didn't. So I think that's where I was like, okay, this is easy. We got along. We had similar interests. We went to the same college. So we started dating. We had a lot of similar interests, but I immersed myself into a lot of his interests that I didn't even know I liked. Like we would go fishing and we would go camping and we would do all these outdoor things that I really hadn't been exposed to that much. My mom didn't like those things. My dad took me to a dude ranch in Wyoming when I was in 8th grade, which I absolutely loved. So he let me explore like a side of myself that I didn't really get to do much when I was younger. I would describe it as easy. It was easy at first. We were dating for 2 years and then we got engaged and we were engaged for a year before we got married. So we were together for a good solid 3 years in our 20s. And it was just that whole time it was pretty easy. He was everything I wasn't. So it became this like very complimentary back and forth with, oh, I could do the bills and you could do this part of it. And it felt very easy and connected. We did start living together about 3 months before we got married, which I don't even know how that was okay with my family, with how I was raised. I did start to see some difficulties with living with somebody. My parents reassured me, hey, you guys just started living together. You're going to have some disagreements about who picks up the socks and who cleans the bathroom and who does this and that within the relationship. Both my parents approved of the relationship. Everything was wonderful. And then we had this like dream honeymoon in Aruba on this like magical week, which I thought was going to be this perfect honeymoon. And that's where immediately I felt like he like flipped a switch. We got to Aruba and he obviously had some issues that I was not aware of. Immediately he pulled out the recording device at the time and wanted to videotape us being intimate on our honeymoon. And I was like, what are you doing? No, absolutely no way. Like, I'm not comfortable with this, especially with my really strict religious background and growing up the way that I did, and this being a very sacred sort of thing with the way I was raised. And he did not like that. He did not like me telling him no, like, at all. And that was really our first physical anything. Like, he gave me a fat lip because I would not allow this to go on. He pulled my hair. I had a ponytail in and it was like all disheveled on the top and I had a big fat lip. He ended up holding the back of my hair while he videotaped it and then didn't like it because I wasn't into it, I guess, or whatever. And so it turned into this big thing on our honeymoon. And I'm sitting in Aruba and I'm completely blindsided. I'm like, what do? I can't just fly home. We just got married. Like, we hadn't even unwrapped our wedding gifts yet, really. They were still all boxed up. And so I just sort of pushed it aside and enjoyed the rest. And if anybody was really paying attention, they could see my fat lip, and like, he recorded the majority of our trip just for tourist type purposes. So every time I would see that, I would see the big fat lip that I had, the big cut in my lip that I had. We had been intimate before we were married. So this wasn't like our first ever experience or anything. He had never expressed any sort of kink. He was raised Catholic. Like, I just assumed that we were just having a normal, loving relationship. I wasn't aware of any sort of sexual addiction or anything like that at all. When we moved in together, a little bit of control kind of stuff about living together. But again, I was reassured that that was normal. When you first start to live with somebody, you're going to have that period of time where it's a little bit rocky. This was completely blindsided. I mean, I was completely and totally blindsided. I remember I left the hotel room to get away. I was like, what do I do? I mean, it wasn't like a big city where I could go to the airport and find a flight home. Like, they only flew on certain days of the week. I remember running into a hotel staff and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But I must have looked a mess because I'm bleeding from my mouth and my hair's all, it was completely like a different person. Not at all like anything I had seen. Our relationship was completely very normal, very easy while we dated. And then it was like we got married and this light switch just flipped. We talked about it at the time and then he just apologized. And you know how they do this profusely apologizing to me. Oh my gosh, I don't know what got into me. I'm so sorry. And I, being the kind of the glass half full empathic person that I am, I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm sure, I don't know what that was. We just got married. There's been a lot of stress for the planning the wedding. So I immediately started to downplay it, even with things that he wasn't even telling me. Just like in my own head, I was making excuses for him. And we got home, continued to integrate our life. And we didn't have the kind of relationship where we could talk about anything. The gaslighting happened. You're the problem all the time happened. So if I would try to like discuss really anything of any substance, it didn't go anywhere at all. I became very conditioned to just let him do what he wants, let him spend whatever money he wants to spend, let him be like man's the head of the household. I never knew what was going to set him off. So I would keep this tally in my head of, okay, I can't do that because that set him off. Okay, I can't do this set him off. It was never predictable. I never knew what was going to make him angry. So there was this very classic cyclical pattern of abuse in our marriage that that revolving door of abuse. And he even got smart. He would hit me on the top of my head so that I didn't have any marks on me at all. Like, he would hit me in the head so that there weren't any bruises, there weren't any marks. I have really thick hair, so he would pull me by my hair. There wasn't any marks. So I didn't have to answer to anything. I didn't say anything to anyone for a long time. It went on for quite some time. He is very charismatic, so everybody loved him. Everyone thought like he was the golden boy of the 3 boys in his family. My parents thought he was just the greatest thing. And then we had kids, and I started to kind of say things throughout having kids. I really did make excuses for him. I mean, we were this golden couple. We both had really amazing jobs. We had a very large home in our early 20s on 3 acres of land. I think there's a misconception about abuse, especially in like upper middle class families. There's almost like more shame in it when you're when you've reached a level of education and a level of success, it's almost harder to say something because you're supposed to be educated and you're not supposed to fall for this. I didn't say anything for quite some time. Like everything, it escalated. I did call the police on him a couple years after we were married, and that's when I finally told my parents about it. He threw me out of the house in the middle of winter with no coat and told me to go away. And so I walked down to a gas station and I had to call the police to get help because I was freezing cold. So I did call the police. That's when my parents found out he was arrested. It was dismissed down to a disorderly conduct, ticket, because I was like, please don't, do anything. I was the wife that was like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. A lot of it started to revolve around the house cleaning. I tend to be more of a laxed person when it comes to the house. He is very OCD. Under gender roles, he wanted me to clean the house. That really wasn't my strong suit. So if the house wasn't exactly the way that he wanted it to be, that was a big point of contention in our relationship. It was a lot of hair pulling. It was a lot of dragging on the floor. It was a lot of punching me in the head, verbal abuse. There was a lot of sexual abuse where I didn't feel like doing anything, but he kind of, that became clear on our honeymoon that was just kind of the precedent that he was going to set. It definitely started to escalate to more and more severe as the episodes went on. I remember being in the car one time and he wanted me to do something and I said no, and he just like backhanded me and my head hit the side of the car window and I like blacked out for a second and I had a huge black eye the next day and had to try to explain to people what had happened. And we were camping and I was under the table and I looked up and I hit the pole of the table. Like I had to come up with something. He tried to toss me, but I was like 100 pounds and I missed the bed and I hit the floor and I fractured a vertebrae in my neck and I had to make excuses about that. The dog leash got caught and I fell down the stairs when I was going down the stairs with the dog. I think that's when I started to notice that there was a big problem, was when I was wearing a neck brace at 25 years old. I just got this overwhelming urge that I wanted to have kids. And then I got pregnant. And then he was so upset because a couple of days before I found out I was pregnant, he had an episode where he was abusive to me. And I remember coming home and telling him that I was pregnant and him feeling like so upset about the fact that I was pregnant and could he have hurt the baby. The safest I ever felt with him was when I was pregnant. And it was an empathy that I had not seen from him ever. Our marriage while I was pregnant was really like very calm. And if I would get upset, he would try to do whatever he could to diffuse my stress. I remember writing him a letter after I left him about how I felt jealous of our kids because I felt like he treated our kids way differently than he ever treated me. And he was kind and nice and gentle with them when they were little. And I remember saying, I shouldn't be jealous of my 4-year-old. I had hoped and I thought that would continue after they were born. Because I'm like, oh, now we have kids. He's going to want to shelter them. He's going to want to protect them. He triangulated us a lot. So he would say, oh, mom's stupid, or oh, mom is this, or oh, mom's that. And then I remember one time so my daughter is older. And I remember one time my daughter was maybe 2 and they were sitting playing a game on the floor. And I walked into the room and he said, tell mommy to go away. And she's like, mommy, go away. And I was like, okay, this is not okay. Like, I don't want my daughter growing up having to say mean things to her mom. He was verbally abusive in front of the kids. He also, a couple of times would use the kids as pawns. Like my son was up in his crib and was calling for me. And my husband was like, you can't get him out of the crib until you clean the house better. And then there was the one time that what made me finally get out was he hit me in front of our daughter and she walked in the room and said, Dad, what are you doing? And he's like, Mommy deserves a spanking. It was like a flip of a switch for me. And I just was like, I cannot allow my children to be raised in this environment. Like I can't. I called the police and just said, hey, my husband hit me. This is where I am. And then they came over, they took my statement and then they went back to the house. So I never told him I was leaving. And I think that was part of what saved me. I mean, there would have been no way for me to get out if I would have said I'm leaving. Not too long before this had happened, we were away for a weekend and he said to me, if you ever leave me, they're going to find you at the bottom of a lake somewhere. And he just said it really subtly, like casually in a conversation, like it wasn't part of a bigger conversation. He just said it. I put a 72-hour hold, like a no contact hold on it. I called my parents. They came over because I'm like, the minute he gets out, he's going to come here. And I don't trust him. He's never been one to like boundaries. And then that's really when I discovered the sexual cheating and the affairs that he was having and other things too, was that same weekend. So if the physical abuse wasn't going to cause me to leave, the affair would. I almost feel like while we were dating, he was like studying me, my personality, my insecurities, my weaknesses. There's a part of me that found gratitude in my experiences, not necessarily gratitude in him, but gratitude for my experiences because I'm able to use them to help other people now.